The small bodies trembled under the careful hands that held them. The strong smell of dirt and dried blood filled the air, mixed with the sticky sensation of parasites embedded in their thin skin. The ticks were everywhere, swollen eyes, ears, between fragile toes, spread like a cruel armor that drained their strength. It was a cloak of suffering, covering those dogs like an invisible, relentless sentence. The latex gloves snapped into place as the first tweezers approached the ravaged skin. The first tick was removed with a precise motion, making a slight popping sound between the volunteers' fingers. It was just one among hundreds that were feeding off the lives of these dogs. Each removal required patience and control because any mistake could leave part of the parasite behind, keeping the infection active. One by one, they were taken off, revealing deep marks, inflamed wounds, and small scabs of dried blood underneath. Their paws were so covered that they looked deformed, every little joint hidden under layers and layers of parasites. When the first tick was removed from one of the toes, a tremor ran through the dog's body. It wasn't pain. It was relief. As if, for the first time in so long, a burden was being lifted. Their eyes were watering, swollen from exhaustion and infection. Their eyelids had tiny scabs where ticks had nestled into the corners, taking advantage of the thin, vulnerable skin. It was delicate work, and each removal required absolute precision. Some were so firmly attached that they had to be gently twisted to be pulled out without causing further injury. Each small pop broke the silence of the room. The smallest dog was the first to show signs of change. She took a deep breath, letting out a slow sigh, as if finally relaxing after so long. Her tiny head, once tense, began to lean into the volunteer's hands. Her eyes blinked slowly as if, for the first time, she dared to trust. The brown dog, who had been unresponsive, finally reacted when the ticks from the folds of his neck were being removed. His ears twitched, he slightly turned his head, and then let out a low whimper. His body trembled, not in fear, but from an unfamiliar sensation of relief. The pain he had accepted as part of his existence was being lifted, tick by tick. The largest of the three still resisted. His protective instincts were still active, and he kept a wary gaze, even though he lacked the strength to fight back. But as the ticks were pulled from his paws, something began to change. His body relaxed, the raised hairs settled, and he stopped trying to pull away. When one of the volunteers removed a large tick near his snout, he blinked slowly and finally allowed the first gentle touch on his head. Minutes passed, and the once clean gloves were now covered in dried blood and tiny remains of the parasites. But the work was far from over. The tangled fur hid more and more ticks, and each removal revealed skin that desperately needed treatment. The tails, which had been motionless, started showing signs of life. The smallest one made a slight movement, hesitant, as if testing whether she still remembered how to show happiness. It was a tiny tremor, almost imperceptible, but enough to make one of the volunteers smile. The antiseptic solution was applied to each open wound. The cool liquid made the dogs shudder, but soon, a new wave of relief washed over them. The initial sting was replaced by a comforting warmth, like an invisible embrace soothing their pain. The eyes that had been closed from exhaustion began to open. The brown dog blinked slowly, and for the first time, there was something other than suffering in his gaze. There was a flicker of hope. The largest one let out a deep sigh, the kind of sigh someone gives when they finally let go of a weight they've carried for too long. Now, there were no more ticks. The weight of the infestation was gone. There were still wounds, still scars, but for the first time in a long while, these three dogs were free. The most incredible part was that, despite everything they had endured, they still showed something many would think impossible: gratitude. When one of the volunteers reached out to the brown dog, he lowered his head and rested it on their fingers in a gesture that was almost imperceptible but full of meaning. The smallest one, still weak, wagged her tail hesitantly. And the largest, the one who had resisted touch before, finally allowed himself to lie down with a relieved sigh. But this was just the first step. The road to full recovery would be long. They needed nutrition, daily care, love, and patience to fully trust again. If you want to follow this incredible transformation, don't miss the next video. We'll show how these little survivors react to their first bath, their first nutritious meal in so long, and most importantly, their first day truly free from pain. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to follow every step of this emotional journey. See you there.